Welcome to Full Throttle Talk, the podcast where horsepower meets conversation. From supercars to classic legends, high revving tech to motorsport mayhem, we cover it all. Straight from the driver's seat, whether you're a gearhead or racer or just love the thrill of the open road, you're in the right place. Buckle up, hit the gas, and let's go full throttle into today's episode. Welcome back. It's Tim Harris, and this is your favorite weekly podcast. This is, of course, Full Throttle Talk. And as you'll notice, if you're watching us on YouTube, we have an all-new group of co-hosts. Well, in addition to Paul, who's not a new co-host. He and I have been here since day one. But I want to introduce all of you to, of course, if you listen to the last show or watch the last show, you know Dave Van Epps, and he's, of course, from Sunderworks in North Carolina. And now I want to introduce you guys to another friend, Casey Parkin. And Casey was somebody that I've heard of before, and I learned more about listening to a really great PCA podcast. And then I've gotten to know him and his depth and breadth of knowledge, specifically about Porsches, but the automotive space in general, is really going to help take the show to the next level. So our mission is, but I want to point this out for those of you who've been interested in things more than Porsche, and I'm right there with you. I'm afraid that it's going to be a losing battle with these three clowns. So just get ready. We're basically going to look at them all smirking. We're going to be going deep. We're going to be deep diving into all things Porsche. And if that's the bend of the show, well, then that's great. So without any further ado, I have a question to start out with all of you. Oh, by the way, the links for these guys, links for their websites, if you want to learn more about them, I'm going to start putting them in the show description so you guys can go and click and do business with any of these guys. So I'm going to start out with a question. What is the coolest thing that you did automotively in the last 7 days? I'm going to have Paul go last because I know what he did. It was amazing. So Dave, you go first.
Coolest thing I did in the last 7 days. Well, it's probably a little outside that window, but I just got back from a Porsche rally that was up in Stanton, Virginia, called the Blue Ridge Ruckus.
Ooh.
And it's put on by a friend of mine named Charles Stanley. And we were up there driving around the Virginia mountains. Fantastic little town. If you've never been to Stanton, Virginia, is a great little downtown area, and the roads in and out of that town are just phenomenal. Great driving roads, just up I-81 north out of here. It was fantastic. It was about 75 air-cooled Porsches. And we take over this hotel up there, great hotel that we were in, and we just ripped it up. And it was a great time. Broke it into different groups, driving groups, kind of stuff I know Paul likes to do too. So that's probably the coolest thing that I've done recently. But I got another one coming up next week.
Which one is that one? Is that the one that you told me about?
No, the thing I told you about was the Highlands Motoring Festival, which is in
Yep.
Highlands, North Carolina. Beautiful town as well. That's more of a car show weekend event. But the one coming up that same another weekend ahead of that is called Small Batch, which had something to do with bourbon, but we had to pivot a little bit. We'll talk about that on the next show.
Okay, so it's a driving tour and it's a bourbon themed driving tour. Already sounds
Sounds
interesting.
good to me. Yeah,
So-
mixing bourbon and driving is a fantastic idea, right?
it sounds very Appalachia, I have to say.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Moonshine out of your trunk or something.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be a moonshine rally. That's a good idea. All right,
That is a good idea.
Casey, you're up next. What's the coolest thing that happened in the last week or so, that you'd like to share with us? Automotively, of course.
So I had two different occurrences. One was slow car slow, and the other one was fast car medium. I've got an FJ62 Land Cruiser that I've been restoring over the course of almost 10 years now. And one of my favorite things to do when the weather's right is to go check out a brewery. My wife and I and our small dog got to do that on Saturday, and the weather was right. All four of the windows did go down, which was awesome because that's not normally the case for that car. But we had a
They
rad
go up
time.
though.
Well, they go down slowly. They go up slower, if that's possible. And then as far as a little bit of my background and my profession is, I look after large vehicle collections. And on Friday, I had the opportunity to back a 3.6 liter RS, a 3.8 liter RS, and a 4-liter RS. And that's not necessarily something that I do. I didn't do them in that order. I kind of mixed it up. And it's really great to be reminded of the things that you love automotively And honestly, working with those three cars is a true, I consider myself incredibly lucky to be able to experience those. I experienced them in period. And then of course now, outside of the sales capacity, I do get to experience them, for enjoyment, which is pretty rad.
So we're talking about the 2010, 2011 generation GT3 RS,
And
correct?
2007 and 8, I guess, is the
So
Yeah.
it's an eight, and a 10, and actually it's an 8 and two 11s.
All right, we're going to circle back because I'm going to have we had a little private chat going on earlier where we were debating whether or not a 2011 GT3 RS 4-liter is really worth $1 million. Did you guys see one just sold, by the way, for $1 million? A little
Oh,
bit better than $1
no.
million. Yeah,
Oof.
before the VIG. Yeah. I think Dave and I are going to be in a great. Everyone's kind of flinching off that one. Yeah. So Paul, how about you in the last week? What was the coolest automotive thing?
Was it the photos I sent you from that one garage? Yeah. So
Probably. Yeah.
yes. So, and it always amazes me. You think, especially, you think you've seen all the collections, especially in your local backyard. And a mile away from my shop, I've known of this guy. I've never met him, but I've known of him because I've dealt with his case, basically his versions of you, Casey, for the last 10, 15 years. And he's a little older than us, maybe early 60s. Sadly, you can't, his health isn't great, so he's got to sell some stuff. And I went to his garage he built, which I was wondering if he's built it to actually have, renters, because it's a killer garage. It's sort of like that Finish Line, clubhouse, but not all the bougie stuff, just really good garages. And I'm supposed to go look at a 15,000 mile 74 2002, a BMW 2002 Turbo, which a 15,000 mile unrestored original 2002 Turbo is so rare. I mean, these cars were just pummeled. Now, you know, sad news is I don't know if it's really a 15,000 mile car. And every time I peel a layer, you know how it is, Casey, you pull a layer of the onion back and you're like, ooh, that's not good. That's not good. And I don't mean to call his baby ugly, but I think whoever helped him buy it didn't do as good of a job. But we still need to do due diligence. So I'm supposed to look at an 87 Carrera hot rod that he built. That's pretty cool with a 3.4 Aussie built motor. But in front of it is a Pagani, which
Jeez.
which is
Collecting dust.
so imagine these cinder block garages. There is not one adornment. They're beautiful outside cinder block, boring. It looks like something a tow truck company would have as a yard. You open up one door where the 2002 Turbo is, which is there's plenty of room to put 6 cars in this garage. There's only 3 cars, and that 2002 Turbo is like 8 inches off the wall. Don't know why. Wheel turned, battery dead, can't really do much with it. Behind it is a 275 Ferrari, 275 GTB Ferrari.
You guys should
Which
see these pictures. He's not underselling it. It
it
really does look sketch.
it looks sketchy. And then what was on? So there was that. It was that Ferrari, and then the other bay had an LFA that looked like it had never been driven, and then this Pagani, which was insane. It had green, purple, and orange carbon fiber.
Can I talk
Like,
about that for a second?
yeah,
All right, so Julie and I have been to Pagani twice, and so we're gonna roll into our next segment, which is telling stories, and I'll tie it back to you, Paul. So in Pagani, have you guys ever been there by chance? Have you guys ever been to the Italian car triangle where all these companies are? They're all in
No.
basically Modena. They're not Maranello, and they're all within a stone's throw of each other. Um, I'll describe all of them succinctly for those listeners and viewers that are curious. So Ferrari is by far the religion in Italy. So much so when Ferrari wins a race, all the church bells are rung to celebrate Ferrari's winning of the race. So just keep that in mind as I tell the story. All the others,
Real quiet there.
huh?
Well, with all the Formula One.
Oh, I see it. That's called Formula One sarcasm. That's not going to
Yeah.
get far with me, son. I'm a Formula One, a Ferrari fan. Yeah, so yes, and that was mean. So direct your ire towards Casey. Just remember, not towards me. I'm the lone holdout for Ferrari on this podcast. So
I did put Charles first for my Formula One fantasy this past weekend, just so you know.
okay, hopefully you didn't put any money on that.
Mm.
All right. So when you go to Italy, what you're going to see is Ferrari is this massive everything everywhere is Ferrari. And the where they build the cars is like you can't even believe how big it is. Now they make 14, they're going to be making 14,000 cars per year. The new manufacturing facility they made is just for the EV cars. So Ferrari's coming out with an all electric sport ute next year. Did you guys know that?
I mean, not surprising. They already, dipped their foot in the water with the other SUVs, so not
Yeah,
surprised.
exactly. The Per
Just the
Sangue.
fact that it would be electric, though, like why would you jump into that still? Jesus.
I don't know. Seems like the ship has sailed on that, and the votes are in, and it turns out people don't want them. And if they want them, don't want them, they don't want them for long if they wanted them in the first place. But moving on.
That's right.
So when you go to Lamborghini, and I've described it on this podcast before, but it is interesting. So you walk into Lamborghini, and there's not a lot of pomp and circumstance. It's more of what you'd expect in a manufacturing warehouse. Basically it's a big warehouse to look like. But what's really fascinating on the inside is that it's divided off into three sections. And when Julie and I were there, it was before the Huracan. Last time we were at Lamborghini, and it was no, we were there when the Huracan was being made, but we didn't go in and watch it. Anyway, there's two lines. And so the Huracan line and then the Aventador line. The Huracan line was they're just assembling the cars. Literally every single element on that car gets brought in from Poland or Hungary or freaking Czechoslovakia. And so all the boxes, like I'll never forget this, all these, Huracans there, and a lot of them had the race sport Sparco seats being installed. The Sparco boxes were just sitting in a big heap off to the side, And you go down this line and you see these people, all they're doing is just taking things out. And then you look clear in the back of this warehouse, and it was massive. It was like bigger than a football field. But you could see them pulling in more bodies in white. You guys know what that means? Bodies in white? Basically, they're already assembled. I forget what country I asked. It was like freaking Belgium or something. So they're being pulled in. Then you go on the other side, on the Aventador line, everything's being hand assembled. The cars are painted in Italy. The body, you saw the lady stitching the leather on the other side. But so that experience on the Aventador line is what Pagani is like. When you walk into Pagani, it's like an experience that you would hope it would be when you're spending $3 to $4 million on a car. The manufacturing facility itself doesn't look like like you'd expect it to look. It looks something, I don't even know how to describe it. And every single car has its own build station with its own assigned mechanics, and there's only maybe 12 cars getting built. Turns out Pagani makes a ton of money from people buying Paganis, sending them to Pagani, and then having them redone, like what Singer's starting to do with Porsches. And then we went to a whole bunch. We went to Maserati and a whole bunch of other places too. But
go ahead. I was just say, I'm just picturing with the Huracan line, instead of Balboni going and test driving them, they have some like mortgage bro jump in and just bang off the rev limiter and go, that's good to go. Send it to SoCal.
I'm actually not even sure they drive the Huracans, Paul. I'm not sure they test drive them.
Not surprised.
I didn't see any. Like when you're over by Ferrari, you see every single customer car getting driven. So there's this place called Maranello Palace, and trust me when I tell you, it's not a palace. It's not crappy, but it's not nice. It's not even as nice as a roadside hotel in America, if you know what I'm saying. The palace, but you can look right into Ferrari, and what a lot of people don't realize is that you can actually a pedestrian, a normal person, not an employee, can walk through from one side of the manufacturing facility to the other. So all you got to do is just walk right through because the town is on the other side. So if you're living on this side of town, Ferrari lets you walk through and you can see everything that's going on inside the factory, which is really kind of badass. But with Pagani, everything is very bespoke in the truest sense that you'd hope that you would think it would be. Last time we were at Ferrari, it was called the Red Night or something. We were just there by accident, and it turned out this annual celebration. They only do it one night, where they open the gates. There's no security. You can go in there and take pictures, which you're normally not allowed to do. And so I went ape shit. And so I was sticking my camera all different places. And I have to say, and I'm a Ferrari fan, but I'm going to say what I saw. In a lot of these warehouses, especially the ones with the higher windows, and I stuck my camera up, they had so many new motors that were packed in there on pallets that you can hardly believe it. But how many manufacturing facilities anymore, does Porsche make their own motors? Who makes the motors for Porsches? Who makes the crankcases?
I mean, Volkswagen, Audi. I don't know. I
Yeah.
assume Porsche made them.
It depends on the engine. Of course, the 4 liters are Porsche engines for the twin turbo ones, but all the sports car engines are made by Porsche. As far as who forges a crankcase, I'm not sure.
Right.
Or
So
casts,
Ferrari,
rather.
Ferrari, Casey, did you know that Ferrari makes all their own stuff? They literally have their own, they pour all their own motors there, the whole thing.
That's
So they have
rad.
like a foundry there.
They do a whole foundry, and
Wow.
they also make the motors for. They made the Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio motor, and they make some of them. They used to make the Maserati motors, but they don't anymore. But it's really pretty amazing to actually see all that happening. Um, Long story short, that Pagani, if you wanted to buy a new Pagani right now, it's a 3 or 4 year wait. And a new Pagani, I asked when we were there, is easily $3.5 million. The Pagani, Paul, that you showed me, and I know you're not going to let us post pictures, but the Pagani that you showed me is way more expensive than that because guys that had exposed carbon fiber that was tinted in different colors. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. I have never seen that before. So that Pagani that guy's got is massive, massive money.
And also, you know, I've known his cars and this guy for 20 years. I've never met him. His son is now kind of his son's in his mid-30s, kind of helping out with it. I've never met him before. I've never seen one of his cars in public on a road. I would guess if I were able to turn on that Pagani, it would have no miles, delivery miles. He's not interested in showing it. I don't remember that hot rod I showed you, that kind of weird pistachio colored hot rod, that
Yep, I
car might
do.
come up for sale. He loves just these building, and he doesn't do any work, but just sort of coordinating building, coming up with a design. So Dave, this hot rod, I think it started as a 71 or 72. It's pistachio color. It's
Ooh,
carbon fiber,
great color.
and he put orange stripes on it, which are vinyl. Thankfully, got to yank those off. Aussie Motor built, I want to say, a 2.9 twin plug MFI motor for it. The car weighs maybe 1,800 pounds with carbon
That's a
fiber.
hot rod.
It
Yeah.
is and it is an on-off switch. I've watched him, the guy who's handling his stuff, drive it around just to keep him exercised. But like I said, and Tim, in that complex, next time I go back, I'll take bigger. Those were two bays that would each probably hold 5 or 6 cars. There was 30 of these bays, and the doors weren't open. I have
Oh my
no idea.
gosh. What
And
is
by
this
the
guy?
way, that's
Yeah.
only one of his places. I know he's got more storage around Southern California.
Wow.
So can you say, with, I'm not asking for names, what does this guy do for a living?
I
Everyone's
have
going to want
no idea.
to know.
I mean, and Casey and maybe Dave, you could, like, I have clients that I've known for 20 years. I still have no idea what they do. And I mean, one of my good friend clients, he's in
I like to
Texas.
keep it that way too, probably, right?
I figure, well, I think it's like if they're really interested in talking about it, they would. I found out, you know, after 10 years of knowing him, he was a dentist, and he bought from me. I forgot. It was a 911, like a 993. I think it was a wide body 993. I had sold for this other client, and I don't really Google my clients or anything. And so he had it for like 4 or 5 years. He asked me, "Can you sell the car?" Sure. He goes, "By the way, do you know who owns this car?" I go, "Well, yeah, I sold it for this guy here in Southern California." He goes, "Do you know who he's married to?" And I'll just say it's one of the actresses from the TV show Friends, and they've been married for a long time. And I've
Oh,
known this
wow.
guy for a long time, and I had no idea that it was his car or her car or whoever's it was. So
It's obviously Courtney Cox because the other two aren't married or divorced. So it's Courtney Cox. Solved. Mystery done. Moving
nah,
on.
it's Lisa
Not.
Kudrow.
Okay,
It's
so
a-
now it's now
That'd
we
be
have two more
Lisa
guesses.
Kudrow.
Kudrow, yeah,
Oh,
Yes, she'd have a husband nobody knew.
yeah,
yeah. That's a good
yeah.
point. Yeah, cool. All right, good story. That's great. Well, so let's move on to automotive headlines. And listeners, where we're going to get with this is a point is a we were kind of prior to the show today talking about what's going on with these modern 911 RS values. And Casey's got some really good cases in point with regards to the 4 liters and things like that. So I wanted to lean in and ask the question, and I will get to it in a second. I'm going to ask the question, really, what's the difference between a 3.6 and a 3.8 and a 4 liter? Why are the price differences so enormous? And are these cars really, considering how many they've made, really truly blue chip investments? But before we get to that, so let's talk about automotive headlines or news. Anything else grab you guys' eyes or ears other than it could be Porsche headlines or whatnot since our last pod?
Nothing for me per se. I've been mostly watching the auctions, and just watching the volatility of the market has really been my focus.
Yeah, me too. Be honest, I hadn't seen anything was really particularly interesting. How about you, Casey?
The only thing that popped up to me that I found was rather interesting, other than, well, I figured we might talk about Monaco a little bit. And I wanted everybody's kind of opinions regarding forcing the two stops. I thought that did make it more interesting, but honestly, I think Monaco is a little, other than the glitz and glamour, to me, it's not very interesting to watch unless it rains. But I didn't want to get into that today. I figured we talk about that at another time. But
Uh-oh, hold on. Paul, you're gonna have to get your Formula One on because Casey and I are
No,
gonna.
no, no. And believe it or not, I didn't get around to watch it. It was going to save it. I was going to watch it, but then I saw hard to not hear the results. You have like a 6 hour window to see it, or otherwise it's ruined. So
Dave, I don't even know. Are you a Formula One fan?
Not really Formula One
Oh,
per se. I watch a little bit, not much more because of where we are. There's more
NASCAR.
NASCAR and other racing going on here.
well,
So it was a big
that's fine.
weekend here.
You guys can be boring when we talk about Formula One. You can just
Oh
learn
no,
from
that's
Casey.
okay. I want to play. I mean, we got to get into this stuff, right?
Casey, have you been to Monaco?
I have not.
Okay.
It would absolutely be on the bucket list. But I've only been to one Formula One race. I went to the first race at Coda in 2012, which was it was pretty awesome. My buddy ran the Porsche dealership in Austin, and they took in a Raptor as a trade, and so I got to drive around Austin in a Raptor for the whole weekend that I was there, which
Do you
was
want to go
really
to
cool.
Do you want to go to Coda this year?
Maybe. When is it?
Okay. I have a private seat license that's right over the Ferrari pits, and we're not going this year. And you can buy my tickets, and if you want to go, they're worth like 5x what I have to pay for them. So if you want them, you can have them.
I'll talk to you about that off mic.
Okay.
But no,
Yeah, that's how much a Formula One fan we are. We bought those when we lived in Austin. Yeah. But
oh, go
let
ahead.
me
Sorry.
let me give you suggestions just for Monaco. The best time to go to Monaco isn't during the race. The best time to go to Monaco is after the race is over because the nature of the vibe there has completely changed. Leading up to the race for the first half of the year, people are full of, I mean, the locals, it's ridiculous. It's because what you don't realize when you're watching the race is the structures that are built around the public streets completely make it a nightmare to live in Monaco because you can't even see the street. There's the temporary the buildings that are temporary buildings that are built for the sake of the track or for the sake of the race are extraordinary. So when you go there, because you will, try to go when the race isn't going on because it's a really, really lovely, amazing place to be, especially if you like car spotting. It's crazy.
No, I bet it's on the list. I would tell you the next Formula One race I really want to go to is Spa.
Oh yeah.
That's my one of my favorite. I've never been there. I've had a number of clients take European delivery and immediately drive to Spa, but that's on a big to do for me. No, the only thing that I wanted to bring up is the head of the EPA, if I'm not mistaken, said that they hate the automatic stop start functionality in modern cars and they want to fix it. That to me is a huge thing because I hate it in cars. I have no idea. They didn't say how they were going to fix it, but the fact that they give automakers some sort of credit if they employ them on their cars, of course, because it does save fuel efficiency. But I think that that is interesting to me because that's a big reason why I'm not a big fan of modern cars. The modern car that both my wife and I have, both it turns on immediately when you turn the car on, and it's really annoying. And it would be really interesting to see what they mean by fixing that technology.
So let me ask you some questions about that. And the listeners are going to get to know you over time, but your background, you were essentially the highest level Porsche tech at a Porsche dealership. Am I overstating it?
No, I wasn't a tech. I was in sales.
Okay, in sales,
So,
but
so
go ahead.
I started in sales, moved to management, but then worked my way up through. I got invited to work on 20 groups for Porsche Cars North America, where I was regularly conversing with product planners for bringing cars into the United States and what people were looking for, and talked to executives at Porsche and receive pretty great connections throughout my years of being with the brand.
Okay, so we're going to drill. First of all, with regards to the start stop, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't almost all the damage to a car done when you start and stop it? Because the oil runs at it from the top of the motor down to the bottom
Mhm.
of the motor. Am I right?
Some of that stuff, I think there's supposed to be some technology that keeps that oil pressure or the oil still circulating in the car somehow while that's happening. I'm not sure where it's doing, but I read that in a similar article that Casey was referring to in terms of because people always complain about the same thing with the starter, that the start, your starter is going to wear out prematurely if you're starting and stopping. But the pushback there is that um, that they're supposedly these starters are overbuilt and are supposed to be able to outlast the car, kind of thing. So I don't know. I hate that feature as well. I think it's
But
terrible.
what's the difference between a dry sump and a wet sump? Like race cars have dry sumps, right? Or they have wet
Yeah,
sumps.
it's a
Dry
remote oil
sumps.
tank. A dry sump is a remote oil tank that the oil is forced into the engine rather than sitting down in the bottom where it gets effectively wicked up by the crankshaft or through a oil pickup tube in the bottom of the motor.
Okay, so are the modern cars that have start, stop, they're not dry sump, they're wet sump. So the motor runs to the bottom. If you're sitting in traffic for a long time, then the motor at the top is not going to get the same lubrication. I mean, it has to be, right?
Well, you'd have to talk to somebody that really knows what they're talking about. Unfortunately, I'm not that guy, but I would tell you that the companies that employ this technology, I would assume from my background with Porsche would have to know that their engines would be safe, because the last thing that they would want is something like a class action lawsuit if every 2011 Cayenne's engine failed because of
It's a good
top
point.
end oiling in the long term, because with how litigious the United States is, something like that would be expected. But there are automotive engineers that I've met there and I've experienced. I mean, I always harken back to Porsche because that's my background. They're way smarter than, I mean, even the guys that design the machines where the Porsches are built in the factory operate on such a different level than I could even fathom. That I know that their automotive engineers would figure things like that out. To me, it's just annoying, being that the car loses power. So you either have to turn the steering wheel 1 or 2 degrees to one side or lift your foot up off the brake pedal. I'm just not a big fan of it.
Yeah, understood. Well, let's move on, guys. Do you have let's have some opinions on these modern GT3 RSs, because they do seem, and we can actually interlace some recent auction results to what Paul was bringing up earlier. The prices on these cars definitely seem to be they're bonkers. And even on I mean, I'm going to say as a run of the mill, air quoting, 997 GT3 RS, right? Which in its day was a desirable car, but wasn't what it's becoming. I think those cars now, what are those things in the mid 300s now for a 997 GT3 RS? Not even a 4 liter, a 3.8, right?
Yeah, point twos, and depending on
Got
miles,
twos, yeah.
color, high twos to low threes.
Can you guys explain this to me honestly? And don't just say Metzger. You have to have something better than that as an explanation.
I
Because
mean, I think part of it is it was like the perfect storm between a recession, people weren't buying luxury goods. The 997.2 era is one of the lowest produced modern era of the GT cars. And I mean, I don't know if I mentioned this before, Tim, on one of the previous podcasts, but a really good friend of mine, he went to downtown LA Motors in like 2010 to buy a 997.2 GT3 brand new. They had which he ended up buying, a blue with red RS 3.8 that was discounted to the point where it was like a 10 grand delta. It was like 135 grand for the RS. And he's like, which one do I buy? And it's like, yeah, get the RS, which now it has, 4,000 miles. It's probably a, low threes, $320,000 car. And he's now at the point, like, those 4,000 miles, 3,000 miles he put on were in the first like 6 years. Now he just doesn't drive it because it's a collectible thing. I've driven all of those cars, not like Casey, where he's driven them recently back to back. And I am probably not the right person because, in my opinion, every RS product or GT3 product gets better, more competent, but I think you lose some of that early 911 Porscheness that I like air-cooled early cars. And in my opinion, the 996 GT3 was the end of it. And Porsche realized, oh crap, people don't want to buy a race car. And the next generation, faster, more comfortable, a little more competent, and so forth. The 4.0 to me is shades of gray, unless you're on a track situation, which no one's going to do.
well, what's the difference between a 3.8 and a 4 liter other than the displacement? What's the difference in the suspension? I've heard rose joints and roll this other Mickey Mouse, but what really is the difference? Where's the money come in? Is it exclusivity? Is it just because the market's decided? Is it, I mean, I'll use the word, is it just hype? I don't get it. Help me understand.
I mean,
So
I think
it's
current market is based on hype and exclusivity. But like when they were new, I don't know, Casey, what was the big difference besides a little more displacement, different flywheel, anything
So,
different internally?
well, so that was, as you pointed out, Paul, was a really interesting time in the United States. We had 3.8 liter RSs sitting on the showroom floor. We had a gray black one with red accents, which I think is the best looking one, and we couldn't sell it. We found a guy that we could sell it to. We had to pull the mirrors off the wing end plates and the wheels and do them all in silver, redo them so the car didn't look like it. We had to then pull off all the graphics so that somebody would buy the car. My biggest claim to fame for ridiculousness at a Porsche dealership is I sold our only 4 liter that we received, and I had to discount the car $400 because the guy didn't want to take delivery at our dealership. He wanted to take delivery at a dealership in Texas. And I had to compensate the dealership for the PDI fee of the vehicle. So it was, as you mentioned, it was a perfect storm of the vehicles that were coming into the United States sitting, Porsche focusing the cars that they were selling to emerging markets such as China and Russia, and we were left with what we had. When people, I remember I had prior client, I kick myself for this, but I had prior clients ask me what the difference between a 3.8 and a 4 liter was. And I just said, I don't know, zero point 0.2. I said, it just didn't, to me, it didn't make a lot of sense. But really, to get back to your question, Tim, a lot of it came down to the fact that it was the final evolution of this small car. And I will use the term Metzger because it was the final production street car that Porsche put that engine in, with a longer stroke crankshaft. And then they did all of the whoop-de-doo stuff that they learned from the GT2 RS. The optional carbon fenders that were about $6,000 on a GT2 RS, they were standard fare. They had a carbon fiber front hood. They had lightened things throughout the car. They, of course, had the really awesome. I know that the paint to sample ones go for $1 zillion. To me, white, black, and red interior with white wheels and ceramic brakes is the way to go. The one that I look after is done that way. That's to me, it's the poster car. It's the what I call the communication livery, and it just makes all the sense. In driving them, they do evolve. I actually did the 4 liter first the other day, and then I went back to the 3.6 liter. And it's amazing how much more raw the 3.6 liter of the early 997 feels compared
Can
to
you
the 4
describe
liter.
that? I mean, raw means different things to different people. So what do you mean when you say that?
So I take care of a 996 RS as well, which to me doesn't feel dramatically different than a 996 GT3. But when it came to the 997 RS, it's just the intake noise, the rattling of the flywheel, the steering, those, and these are all well maintained, well taken care of, no story cars. So I can kind of say that they're kind of drive as new. Um, the 3.6 liter just to me feels like it's a little bit older. It harkens back to what Paul was referring to as what it feels like to drive an old car. I
Well,
kind of
let me
go
ask
ahead.
you a question though. So I'm thinking about what you're saying, and I had a 2010 gray black with red, by the way, and should have kept it obviously. I'm just wondering. I'm wondering if the price difference between I'm so okay. Let's just put it this way. I'm going to pretend I'm a guy who wants to buy his first RS or his third RS, and I know I can get a new 992 dot one GT3 RS with all the doodads on it, or I can go back catalog and get a 997, 3.8, and they're kind of in the same price bracket. I'm wanting to understand why I would want, because I'm kind of with Paul, like newer is going to be better. So I don't understand why someone would want to buy a back catalog car versus a new one, other than, I don't know, nostalgia. I don't get it.
So I'm 43, right? And to me, when I was in my formative years of what I would call my mid 20s of these aspirational things,
Hmm.
this era of car to me struck all the right chords. If you look at things in the way people benchmark cars, like when I was a kid, I would look at 0 to 60 times of 993 turbos and those sorts of things. when cars got newer, like they do now, like let's say 992, it's a great car. I look after 3 GT3 RSs. I took European delivery for 2 of the clients to pick them up in Europe. I have a
Hold
great
on, hold on. They did European delivery and they sent you to get it?
just it's we don't need to talk. Well, that's a
I
different
want that
story for a
job.
different day.
Paul, do you want to go?
I'll
Seriously,
go.
Dave, you guys want to go?
I'm
We're
in.
going.
Let's go.
Casey, we're going to help you out. You can stay home. We'll go for you.
So there are, well, I did not technically take physical possession of the vehicle.
Oh,
That's another little bit of that's a little inside baseball that we can discuss at a later time. But it was, we're at the time now where people care so much about lap times. They care about lap times. They care about how fast a car is benchmark against another car. They care so much about things like a drag race between a 992 GT3 RS versus some Ferrari equivalent. They don't, there's something that you cannot put in a description in a video as to how a car feels. And I think that is, I'm a guy that I worked in audio. I learned to record to tape. Then I learned to record digitally. Now I listen to vinyl at home. I'm the kind of guy that likes to get back to feeling things in my fingertips when I drive. And to me, it's so important to have that level of engagement because when it comes to the 992 platform, they're all awesome. It's like pick a different flavor of ice cream. But honestly, it's all ice cream. It feels very homogenous, whether you drive a Dakar or a GT3 RS or a 911 Turbo S.
so
All
let me,
these cars feel similar.
that's a very interesting place to stop. And Dave, I'm going to ask you the same question. Have you driven any of
Sure.
these cars? What's your
I
drive
have.
experience?
I've got three friends of mine, all who have bought recently, actually, and it's they're all white because that seemed to be the most popular of the 997s, obviously the GT3s. They bought not RSs but GT3s, all dot ones. And I think that was really more of a price point thing. But the answer that you fundamentally get, and I think it's one of those things that as the technology keeps moving along, a la the 992, that we all harken back a little bit. And then a few years from now, we'll be looking at the 992 as, oh, it gives me more of a visceral feel. It's going, because it just keeps getting better and better. And these guys who have all bought these cars feel that those cars still have a little bit of that rawness to them when they're driving them, aggressively in the mountains or that kind of stuff. Where the newer cars, they're bigger, they're wider, it's a bigger experience, and it's just not as nice. So I've got a chance right now. Somebody's offering me a dot one GT3 in blue, which is obviously a fantastic color, and there's a little bit of a premium on that blue color. But I'm not sure. I think I would want to do the 992, candidly. I don't think that car speaks to me like it speaks to other people.
Paul, I know you've been showing us, if you guys are watching on YouTube, he's giving
Yes,
us a
we're
little,
seeing it right there.
that's awesome.
And I'm kind of the curmudgeon about newer Porsches. When I think the newest, I haven't driven a 992 GT3. I've driven 991.2 GT3 RS, GT3 Touring, and regular GT3, and they're all really amazing cars. But to me, unless you're driving them at 7, 8, 9, 10s, which is almost impossible unless you're on a track, they just name your luxury sports car driving around LA. I mean, and it's like to live here, Tim, and drive around here. You go, so when I go to the mountain, and I honestly think like 2016 GT4 is like the max you need for fun weekend driving. So for me, there is such thing as slow car fast. A 996 GT3 is slow car fast, relatively speaking, but at 60 miles an hour, it is engaging, and you can be in, a lot of the, like going up to the mountains. I'll be driving through the twisties at 80 miles an hour, and that's like 8 tenths, and and it's still really invigorating. I drove a 991.1 GT3 RS up to the mountains, and I remember distinctively, how you could set the speed, the thing to ding when you're going over 80 miles an hour, or whatever it is. So if you've gone Angeles Crest, there's especially the back way through Upper Big Tahunga, or 9 Mile, they call it. It started dinging at 80. So I couldn't figure out while driving how to just turn it off. So I just cranked it up to like 125. And I must have hit that thing at least half a dozen times, allegedly. Um,
In
so
Mexico.
yeah, in Mexico. And it's like I'm going through a turn and I'm thinking, I'm going a little, I need to come up a gear. In the middle of the turn, you can change gears. No
No
disrupting the
penalty.
chassis, no drama, which in the 996 GT3, there's no way, or any other air-cooled car I would consider doing that. So for me, I, I I don't understand those cars. I know people love them. I think the most of the people who, I probably get every week, hey, do you know of a good GT3 RS touring, 991.2, which I think will be really collectible cars. I mean, they're
Yep.
already sought after. And I drive them and I'm like, does it really feel that engaging? Is it a $220,000 driving experience? Whereas a 991.2 wing car manual could be 170 and it kind of feels the same. And don't get me started, I don't understand the touring market. Like, hey, let's take something that's made to have all this aero and yank it off and charge more. Or at least, from the used market. So I'm probably a curmudgeon, and I really think after the 997 era, it's not even the Metzger thing and the last of this or that. It's just really like I don't understand what you do with these cars because no one's tracking them because God forbid you get a rock chip.
That's the
Um,
problem, ultimately, what you just said. They've gotten to the point where they're so damn expensive. And it doesn't, expensive is relative, I suppose. I hate it when people say that, and I don't actually believe it. Expensive is expensive, When your damn car costs the same amount as the average home costs in the United States, it's expensive. Okay. Just let's all agree. 400 grand is 400 grand. Yeah. And if you ball that thing up, or if you get rock chips on it, or if you do all this damage to it, it's going to be a significant ding against, you're going to lose a lot of money just for a little bit of fun. So there is a point where things do get to the point where the math changes, the calculus changes, and it's not as fun anymore. But I do have a next question for you guys. What's the most undervalued current RS Porsche? I bet you all three of you get this wrong. The most undervalued, because this is a quiz, it's an intelligence quiz.
our
Undervalued. Casey's going to come up with a good answer. He's got his thinking face on.
I mean, should I go first?
No, I want Casey to go first.
All right.
Casey, one answer. You can have two answers if you want to. Most undervalued modern RS Porsche. Oh, look at Dave.
You're
Boop,
going to
boop,
want
boop.
me to say something
No,
that's
no, no, no.
not a 911.
Oh, damn. Casey's smart. I told you we were screwed with this guy. Paul.
I take care of, I mean, you and I went back and forth a little bit about the mid-engine RS cars, and I would applaud you because you seem to be the kind of guy that figured it out. The
Oh
cars that,
man. It's going to be
well,
the Casey and Tim show. Y'all can just take next week off. I love this
We'll,
guy.
we'll sit.
so I take care of a really beautiful, it was one of the last cars that I ordered. It's a signal yellow Spider RS. I've never driven it with the top off. And you
Mm.
told me that the car is pretty terrible with the top on, and it's real boomy inside, and I 100% agree. So I was planning on doing it today, but the weather is pretty miserable where I am, so I'm going to rebuild a door on that MFI Carrera we talked about earlier. But so I would probably tell you that as far as a value in something that's never really going to exist again, I might side with you on Spider RS because they do carry a better resale value in terms of monetarily than the Caymans do, because I do believe the Caymans are just the same problem that you mentioned with the roof on the Spider car. They're too boomy inside. And I think that's why a lot of people got out of them, and honestly why it's one of the only RS cars that I believe that you can kind of get for under MSRP now,
You
which is
can. Yeah, the
which is pretty wild.
GT4 RSs. It's all tire noise on the inside, and it is very boomy. And yeah, all those things. And also the suspension on those cars is that on the Spider they put a different suspension. It's much softer.
Yeah.
Well,
But
softer.
I would tell you that so before recent years, the year that they built the most amount of cars or sold the most amount of 911s was 2007. So I would tell you that for a long-term hold, not that this is investment advice, but I would tell you an '07, '08 GT3 RS, because it's a 911 and because it's a general consumption RS car, for the long term is probably going to be the best buy.
All right. That's awesome. I love it. Dave, your turn.
I
So
was
hold
going to
on.
say that,
Casey said 07, 08, 911 RS. You don't have to have a different answer. You can agree, but go ahead. Sorry.
no, I mean, in terms of value and bang for the dollar, I'm gonna go back to a car Paul mentioned a minute ago, which is the 16 GT4 RS. I think that's a hell of a car. I like an idiot had one and I sold it.
Well, Dave, that's a
Um,
GT4. That's not an RS.
No,
oh, okay. I
a
apologize. I didn't
16.
think RS cars. That was
Yeah.
that. I apologize. You're right.
You want us to come
You're
back
right.
to you? We'll come back
Yeah,
to you.
yeah. Please,
You can
please.
reconfigure. Paul?
Well, Dave's not wrong. You said RS cars, a 991.1 GT3 RS,
He said
2016.
GT4. He said
I
GT4.
did. I said
Oh,
GT4. I
GT4.
did.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Well, I thought he said, because I was agreeing. I think a 16 991.1 GT3 RS is a good value. Now, I don't think about what is it going to be worth tomorrow. It'll always be kind of on the lower end of the RS. If you look at water cooled, liquid cooled RS products, 911 products, the 991.1 GT3 RS will always sort of rank low until we see what the 992s do. It'll always, I mean, I'm looking at bring a trailer. You can get a sub 5,000 mile car in a good color for, under 200. Like the same price as a 997.2 just plain GT3. So I really have two answers. If you want modern, I think I look at those, I go, man, they're cheap. If it were me, I would buy a highest mileage one that the value is gone and I could just pummel the crap out of it. And on the other end, I still think if that's RS. I was thinking well, 964 Carrera RS.
Oh, man. That was my answer. Jerk.
Because it's if you don't get the holy grail colors, which maritime blue and ruby stone, which is funny because those were the most commonly ordered, but if you get like a black higher mileage one, I think they're right around 200. And Casey and Dave, have you ever driven a 964 RS? I assume Casey has.
Oh yeah.
It's
I've
my
got one in the
favorite
shop
car.
right now.
Yeah,
My favorite car in the
mint
whole
green.
world.
what's really wild about those cars is like a 993 RS to me looks exaggerated. Looks like it means the business, and it kind of I think drives a little docile. Whereas a 964 RS looks completely benign, and then you drive it, and honestly, it reminds me of a 996 GT3. It's at 40 miles an hour that you can tell the car's going, let's effing go. Like I'm ready to go, and it's just raw. And I remember when I drove that first, and then drove a 993 RS, and I was kind of let down by the 993 RS. I was expecting from the looks it to be a much more exaggerated performance. And the 964 RS, as long as you don't get a holy grail color and you don't care about paint work and you don't care about the odometer and you just get a good solid driver, I think they're a good value. And I don't think they're ever going to go down in value or change.
So I've got an answer that will surprise you guys, I think. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. You go next.
No, well, I'm just going to say I was going to agree with Paul basically on because your question was modern, so I'm going to go with obviously water cooled car. 991.1 GT3 RS is certainly it's a great car, great value if you don't care about the certain creature comforts and that's really not the word I wanted, but I'll let you jump back in, Tim. Go ahead.
By the way, we're all in our 40s and 50s, so modern to us can mean basically anything from 1994.
Okay.
Let's just be honest.
Fair enough.
Now I know Casey was basically in high school then, or high school. Is that right?
94, I was 12.
And I had already graduated college and was working.
In 94, I had already been married 3 years to the same person I'm married to now, just for the record. So I'll give you guys an answer. It might surprise you. I think, ready for this? I think the 992.1 GT3 RS is actually undervalued. And I'm going to tell you why. I think Porsche is going to jump the shark in every meaningful way with the new GT2 RS. And it's going to bring up the values of those, what everyone would say, people were paying way over sticker, the whole thing. All the hype train had left the station, came back, filled up again, left the station, came back for the modern GT3 RSs. But when the GT2 RS comes out, I bet you guys those are 7-figure cars. I would not be surprised. They're going to supposedly have 900 horsepower. They're supposedly have electric that's going to power the front axle, all these things, but they're going to bring up the values of those cars. So that's my first answer. And I'm going to do what Paul did. And I'm going to take a secondary answer too. I really truly do believe the Spider RS is one of the most special Porsches that Porsche has ever made, full stop. And I can wax poetic about it forever. And I can give you guys all my own personal comps as to why I actually think like that. But the only other car I've ever driven that delivers that same level of, I mean, it makes me speechless. And if you guys don't know me well enough, that's not something that happens very frequently. But when I drive that car, the only thing it really reminds me of is like frankly, my Ferraris. That's it. My Pista, the, Scuderia, the, 16M, all those things. This, the Spider RS delivers all those emotional, in even more because it's so much louder, so much sort of in your face, snarly. It actually, when you drive it, you kind of feel like it doesn't like you, and you have to weasel your way into its heart before it's actually going to start rewarding you with the sort of harmonic perfection that it truly is. So that's my stance on the whole thing. Hey, Paul, I think I'm learning how to wax poetic from you, my friend.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right. So next
I'll
question I
send
have
us his photo gallery here.
Yeah, I
Well,
need
yeah,
to
I'm just showing you that, they're meant to be driven. This is a photo on a rally. I just did 20 miles in gravel and dirt in my GT3, and it
So I have
was really good. It's a GT3 would make a really fun like rally car.
They
I mean, look at
did.
Jeff
They
Swart,
did
what he does
make.
for us.
I think they made 997 homologated rally cars, if
Mhm.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they did.
just out of curiosity, you guys will know more about this than me. Do those motors on those the GT motors? I don't hear anything bad about them. I don't hear people like complaining and crying
Which
about them.
which GT motors?
Any of them from the 996 on forward. I mean, I've never heard
They
Got
had
one.
the coolant
the one.
pipes.
Yeah.
The coolant
That's
pipes
it.
were a known issue.
And leaky
They have
remain seals.
shitty LSDs.
Yeah.
And that's kind of about it. I mean, it's funny. I don't know how far it goes, Casey. You might know in the Metzger engine, but like when you look under, I'm sure 996 and I'm pretty sure 997, the engine case number is stamped 964.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's a. I mean, they evolved that engine for such a long time.
Right.
The
Hold
claim
on.
to fame was that they
This-
won Le Mans in the car in 1998 with the GT1.
Let's
that's
let's
where
take
it
a
all
step
started.
back. I'm the dumb listener. Okay, I'm me. I'm not understanding what Paul just said. You're saying that
So
the
when you look
case-
at when you look at the engine case underneath the car, they have a part number basically. And the way Porsche would do part numbers is if it was a 964 product, it would say 964 is the beginning,
Right.
993, 996, 997, which is how they, technically they're all 911s, is why we call them these different nerdy names. But the 996 GT3, the case is stamped a 964 part number. I'm
Wow.
pretty sure the 997.1 is, which is fundamentally the same engine. I mean, the difference between a 996 GT3, 996.2 GT3, and a 997.1 GT3 from an engine standpoint is like shades of gray. They're really the same engine case. I don't know, Casey, when you get to the 4 liter, is it stamped 964 on the case?
I'm. That's where I'd tell you that I'll put it this way. I have a jack, and on Friday, if you guys invite me back to be on the podcast next week, I will jack up I think I take care of like seven of them. So I'll look at the bottoms of all of them and let you guys know what I find.
It is.
And going
Yeah.
to Casey's point, I mean, that was the thing about, I mean, a lot of people don't even know why they want a Metzger motor. I mean, Metzger was just an engineer that designed the air-cooled motor going back to the earliest 911s, I think
64.
64. And so by time you get to the 2010 GT3, 2011, whatever, the GT3 RS 4.0, it is a, what is that, 50-year engine development? I mean, it literally was, as much as they could do to that engine. And I think that's why people like them. And and 996 turbo, same engine, one of the best buys out there. And really a trick to that is the Tiptronic's actually better than the manual. And people will hate me, but it's true.
Let's stay talking about motors for a second. It wasn't on my agenda, and I do want to ask you guys questions about the VIP program, what you might know about it, or what you might not know. Casey, I'm betting you're going to know a lot more than we do. But when it comes, and Dave, this is a Dave question, I think. But so when you're building a 911 hot rod motor, it's not impossible to easily spend like $100,000 just on the motor. And I've seen, Mirage International and, Jay Lee and some of these others, that's what those motors end up costing. I want to understand why that is the case? Why is it that a hot rod motor, a very high-end hot rod motor, costs that much? And Paul, you've experienced, you're in SoCal, you know, live this life. Help me understand. Why is one 100 grand versus another, say, 25 or 30 grand?
I can answer that. Or at least I think I'll take a swing at it, because ours, you know, I mean, some of it is reputational, that you know, they're charging you more for that motor. Some of it is certainly tolerances, performance, you know, we'll call it blueprinting or something along those lines, where you are really sending off the individual parts for very delicate machining and or tolerances and so on. But I would tell you that the basic assembly of any one of those motors is going to be roughly 120, 30 hours to put one of those things together in terms of the labor. So it's really going to be a function of the parts that you're picking that are going to actually
Okay.
increase the cost of that motor as well.
So you're saying 130 hours to put together any 911 motor or the, go ahead.
Air-cooled 911 motor without, and that's not including like the machining that you sent off someplace else to machine the heads or something like that. I'm talking about assembly of that, disassembly and assembly of that motor, about
Wow.
130 hours to do it.
And
Okay,
Casey,
so
what's shop rates nowadays? What's shop rates for, like, you know, what would that be?
I mean, I think that's a Dave question. I mean, he owns a
I
shop.
can tell you what it is here locally. It's 275 bucks an hour. At least, you know, with some of the shops, our rate's not that. We're around 200 here, our shop rate.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I mean, Porsche dealer in Southern California is well over 300, 325, 350 for the Porsche dealers. Independents, you know, anywhere from low twos to high twos. And it depends, you know, like the shop rate to do just general maintenance might be two, but the shop rate to assemble a motor where you need a special skill could be 275.
so you
And
guys are telling me nowadays, and see, I didn't even know this, that the cost to rebuild a motor, not even to make it to a hot rod motor, is $275 an hour times 130.
yeah.
Labor, that's
So
just labor. Start adding piston cylinders, special, you know, cranks, you know,
I can't do that in my
electronic
head.
Yeah.
fuel
So
injection.
we
I
have
mean,
that 79 SC that has that hot rod. It's a 3-liter motor built with, but they put new, still 3-liter Molly higher compression. I think it's 9.8 to 1 compression pistons and cylinders. And I think, and he did it in 2020 or 21, which the prices are definitely are higher. And I think the piston and cylinder set from Molly, I want to say was $6,000 then. And
yeah, I
now
think
if
it's
it was
pushing
just a
up on
regular,
$8,000 now. It's
yeah.
that same setup is about 8 grand.
But if you would have just ordered the stock ones, which I think were 8.5 to 1 compression, those probably would have been, you know, $5,000. And at that time, I remember it was really hard to get the parts.
So
You know,
just to build a SC motor, and maybe I'm hearing you guys wrong, you're telling me just to build it without parts, I'm into it for 30 grand, 35 grand.
so that 79 SC, he just did the motor in 21 done. That was split the case, polished the crank, all new bearings on the low end. He did 964 cams, little upgrade on cams, little upgrade on compression, machine work. And I think the total bill, parts, labor, everything for that motor was 46 grand.
Wow.
And
And
that
what
was
year
it.
was this, Paul?
And that was early 21, before like pandemic pricings went nuts and parts became unavailable. The transmission, which he had Jeff Gamroth to, which was the 915 transmission, all new bearings, upgraded second, third, and fourth gears, shorter gears, guards limited slip, full Gamroth rebuilt transmission was 9,500.
So this goes back to what you've always said, Paul. Make sure you buy a healthy car to start with.
Yeah, he bought that car. It only has 40 some thousand miles. He bought it out of Toronto, you know, did a local PPI, supposedly good. And every layer of the onion he pulled back, they just found, I mean, they found like low compression, like, okay, maybe it dropped a ring or maybe a valve was bad. And then they pulled it off and then they go, number 3 piston's bad. And, you know, each thing they pulled back was more and more. So this car that he got a good deal on, you know, he spent just on the mechanical stuff 55 grand. And I know
Wow.
there's more receipts over 60 on a car that we're selling for 90 that
Yeah.
he bought
Yeah,
for
that's
60.
happens all the time. Happens
Porsche
all
math.
the time.
And
Porsche math.
That's
I
that's
could tell
man
you
math.
I could tell you stories about my 964 if you want to get into interesting decisions and when you think you get a good deal on a car.
Let's
There-
go.
Yeah, bring it.
I'm not sure we have enough time today.
It's going to become a counseling session for all the other
So
people.
instead of a coffee, we should probably have actually weed.
Yeah. No, I bought a one owner 964 from a lady that got the car for a 50th birthday present from her husband because she wanted a car the same color as her hair, and the car is polar silver. And I got the car
Too bad she
for-
didn't have magenta hair.
Hold
Oh,
on, that Polar Silver's got a little of the blue tint to it too.
There you go. So
Very rare. Paint to sample color.
Wow.
There you go. But
I don't want to make a
it's
joke about the carpet and the drapes either.
Oh,
So I got the car, and I thought it was something, and I've got my technician that I work with hand in hand most days. He and I started going through the car, and I tell you that literally, oh, it pains me to say this, but I'm in the car now for what I believe the car is worth on on the open market, which is good, but it still has rust around the windshield. It still has it's got 150,000 miles on it. Could it use a top end? Sure. I just full engine out reseal, just fixed all of the plastic that was broken, replaced all the magnesium with aluminum because it was all blown out.
Wait, what year
and
is the car, Casey? What year?
It's a 91 C2.
So was it a late 91 where it had head gaskets already, or
So one of the heads was rebuilt. One of the heads.
that's
So
weird.
it has one head gasket and five without.
Oh.
But the car has good compression. It's strong. I told my tech that I work with that I said I need it to last 4 years and 20,000 miles. I said if we can get to that, then we can begin to focus on doing like a maybe an interesting like 3.8 liter or something like that. But my investment right now, and I don't drive cars hard, which may or may not be good, but this car sat for 8 years before I got it. I've got a weird left foot because I had surgery on it a bunch of years ago, and for a long time I couldn't drive stick shift cars. And this car had a GT3 stiffness level clutch that engaged right on the floor. And we replaced literally everything except for the transmission. Well, I take that back. So we started with clutch cylinder or master, slave, and hose, which is what you do first to see if you get it off the floor. That didn't fix it. Then we pulled the engine out. Thankfully, we did because all of the fuel lines were about to explode. Redid all those. Did a clutch flywheel. Had the flywheel checked out. Had a new pressure plate, new release bearing, new pinion bearing. It had one of those clutch forks that is like the sintered brass. It wasn't on needle bearings, so I went back to needle bearings to make sure that the clutch was nice and smooth. Put it all back in the car. Clutch felt the same. So if we were going to talk about
Just need to
project
bend
cars,
the clutch pedal up a little bit. That's what you need to do
So
now,
that-
right?
that's-
Just heat
that's-
that up and bend it towards your foot.
so that's pretty funny that you say that. I found one post on Renlist from a zillion years ago that somebody said, "Hey, I put my clutch pedal. Well, I looked at the clutch pedal in my car, and it sat 2 inches further back than the brake." And I was like, "How in the world could a clutch pedal be bent?" So we pulled it out and put it on a table, and it was bent about 3 degrees. And
So this gal was a big gal. She had some
No,
strong legs.
tiny,
No,
tiny. And
tiny.
traditionally, you only see this if the car is in a bad accident because people mash the snot out of the brake and the clutch. So that pulled the release point up, but the stiffness was still there. It didn't make any sense. So, and unfortunately, I work on perfect cars. I benchmarked this car in the way that it feels off of a 7,000 mile RS America. And then, of course, the Carrera RSs that I look after, and I've got OCD. So for me dealing with something like this, it's like if it's not right, I can't sleep.
Oh, Jesus. Good
So,
luck.
so
was there
the
any
clutch
point,
was
Casey, you just want to tap out of this project? I mean,
no
early.
because
You're
well,
pot committed now, but
it's the only way that I could afford a 964. And to me, not that you and I need to argue about this, but 964 for me is peak Porsche. The Carrera RS that you mentioned earlier, I don't think there's anything better than driving a Carrera RS. And I personally don't believe that you can make a non-Carrera RS feel like a Carrera RS because of the welded chassis and all those things.
I agree.
but they came down to, I literally, my tech, Yuri, I bought a bunch of parts, and we finally got to the point where he said, I fixed it. And it turned out that the cage that the pedals went into was bent. You
Whoa.
couldn't see it, but the cage, but we replaced all the bushings, everything down there. But however the master cylinder engaged with the roll pin and the clutch pedal, that was the cause of the issue. And also a new clutch spring. Those two things together, and the clutch feels perfect.
Wow.
And so that was something I discovered an hour and a half ago, because if I couldn't get the clutch to work because of the way that my left foot is and dealing with DC traffic, car was going to have to
So
go.
Casey, you just discovered the solution 90 minutes ago?
Yes.
Oh,
I got
well,
here early, and
good job.
Yeah.
And
Bravo.
how long you been chasing this gremlin?
I bought the car a year ago next month.
Oh wow. Well, congratulations. You
Holy
have a good,
cow! It's expensive along the way to look at that.
yeah.
To
You either
find
have
a
a really
bent
good
piece.
mechanic, you either have a really good mechanic or really bad mechanic. Did bro just recently get a new boat?
No. So I'll put it this way. I've got guys that I work with in the industry that are gold level Porsche technicians for when they were with Porsche, and my technician was one of those when he was with
Mm.
Porsche. I worked with the guys that take care of huge collections. I work with guys that run IMSA race teams. I work with guys that worked on these cars in period. And like the amount of people that would have guessed that it was a bent pedal was zero.
That's
Because,
incredible.
and my technician always tells me, he said, you can know a lot, but nothing will humble you more than working on an old Porsche.
And that's not even that old, as we
No.
just determined. Old is anything older than, I don't know. It'd have to be older than, for me, in 1970. That's
Well,
old. That
anything
shit's old.
that you can't plug OBD2 into to
Uh,
diagnose, that's old. I mean, we have a Bosch
so
hammer.
95 and older is old to
Yeah,
you.
seriously.
So we have a Bosch hammer, which I took it to my Blaupunk guy that rebuilds radios for me, and he got it working because it hadn't worked in who knows how long. But that thing is honestly pretty rad. It's kind of like playing some sort of like
It,
Tecmo Bowl thing.
it's
Like
like a
in
P Whiz for like a early 90, like 964, right?
Yeah,
it is, and it's the
928s
weird.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
You
it's
know what
the
it is,
weirdest.
Tim?
No
They call it
idea,
the
and I wasn't
hammer.
going to ask. You don't
They
have to
call it
tell
the
me. But
hammer, like code readers.
yeah,
OBD2,
yeah.
you can buy, from Amazon, these little code readers. Well, back in before OBD2, which is 964, and there was a thing called a hammer, and it was like a P-Wiz. It was basically a code reader. I mean, pretty archaic, which I think, and I'm sure, I'll bet you Casey's read this, but Triple
Here, I've
Zero,
got.
one of the
Hold
first,
on one second.
yeah, Triple Zero, one of their very first magazine issues, my friend did a whole nerdy breakdown of all the different code readers Porsche came out with. And the hammer, let's see if you can see
Uh-oh.
it.
Further back.
Oh
Yeah.
man, it's the background's messing it up. Let me
Put it
see
in
if I can
front of
turn
you,
this.
Casey. Put it in
Looks
front
like
of
it
you.
looks like a hammer
Yeah,
though. The
it's
Yeah.
this
shape of a
thing.
hammer, right?
Oh, I
That's
got
why
it.
they call it the
And
hammer.
it
Yeah.
goes into what, like a 19 pin port type thing?
It's
Hmm.
about this
Round,
big
circular
around,
board.
and
Round.
it's
Yeah.
yeah. But that does not diagnose a weird clutch pedal. That's for sure.
No, it's going to tell you a misfire or something pretty
Yeah,
basic.
but it
Very,
can do
very,
things
very
like
random stuff. It tells you.
yeah,
Yeah.
actuate solenoids in the HVAC suitcase and do all kinds of interesting things. But that's a wonderful tool that, I mean, these are things that after I left Porsche, I had to learn how these things worked, because there are some things like if the car was a C4 to, bleed the ABS system, if you remove the pump, you have to use this tool. I mean, it's a whole thing, but you know, that's what I consider old, is something that you can't plug in and say, it's got these 8 codes. This is what you need to do to fix it. It
And
really requires mechanics.
And bringing it back, Tim, this is why the labor rates and the costs of engine builds are so expensive, because every step of the way, oh, to do that engine, you need this tool. Go find that tool. Oh, you found the tool, but now you got to go have some guy who just works on old weird radios go fix the tool so you can use it. I mean, it's just It is literally layers upon
But
layers.
actually, this is something I learned from Casey when he was on that PCA podcast. The number of guys that are learning how to do this type of work, it's beyond a dying breed of a generation. And I don't know what the future is going to hold other than increasing labor rates as people like Marco are able to, charge whatever they can with, 2 years of wait list just to get the oil changed. I'm
Well,
exaggerating, but
I think what's going to happen, you're already seeing it. Like when MFI was difficult, people were going back to carbs or whatever. I think now what they're doing is EFI is such a ubiquitous thing for these old cars. You take an old Porsche and you put EFI on it, and you solve a lot of the problems where you don't need a hammer. You just need a laptop and a Bluetooth.
are you talking about like a
Tim, you froze in a weird place. Uh,
You did.
but
We're
but
carrying it.
basically, I think, and I see these builds all the time that to do, I love, going back to Casey, what you and I talked about, the 2.7 MFI motor is one of the greatest motors to drive. It is such a special experience that I always said if people drove a great 2.7 MFI motor, they'd stop putting 3.6s in these old cars and they would just do that. No 3.2 short stroke, none of this other crap. They would just do a great 2.7 MFI motor. And but I think that is a dying breed. So the next solution is you put an EFI system in, and the EFI system works really well, and it's easy and it's less expensive. Um, so I
Well,
think
I
Tim,
actually think that it depends on which EFI system you're installing, because some of them are a real pain to try to
right,
program and so on, and they take a lot of in the seat learning in terms of being able to get them dialed in properly based on the way the programs are written. I've got guys that just like swear by Motec, and I've got other guys that just hate Motec because of the
right.
way that it's much harder to learn how to set those cars up.
But
I've
going back to what Tim says, the dying breed. The irony is, almost all the guys I know in the LA area who do EFI tuning, they're all young guys.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
that is kind of the next wave. It will be a shame, but look at anything. Look at guys who know how to fix a Duesenberg engine. There's like one or two people, but the supply is enough for those one or two people, and that's it. I think
Yep.
you're going to get to a point where there's going to be a handful of MFI guys, but the people who want MFI to work is going to dwindle, and EFI will be the next thing, which is great in the end. I mean, people will. There's part of me that hates that, but the other part's like, well, I'd rather have that and have the car on the road than nothing happening at all. So I think Tim might have ducked out. Oh,
Oh,
is he?
he's coming back.
He's
I'm
coming
coming
back.
There he is.
back.
All right,
He's
Tim.
coming back.
Yeah, and that was a
I,
good show. See you later.
yeah, no, exactly. So no,
One
this
quick interjection, Paul. So I will tell you that I'm a huge fan of Porsche Classic. They have been a huge support to me through Porsche restoration challenges that I participated in, and they let me show cars at the Heritage Gallery in Atlanta, and they've been awesome. And I will tell you that Porsche as a manufacturer and as an entity in the United States does take classic seriously. The parts that they're releasing now, even they just released not too long ago. I heard you talking about 968s, but a 968 timing belt tensioner, like things that didn't exist for the last 20 years because they couldn't get them. So they are making huge efforts for training Porsche Classic technicians. My buddy Steve runs the Classic division at Porsche Gauden, and they traditionally win the restoration challenges every year. But they take it seriously, be it training at Porsche and Pecla or down in they've got them in Easton, Pennsylvania, and also in Atlanta. They are training new generations of technicians to be classic technicians. But of course, it takes somebody with the drive and want to learn how to work on old cars where they can really stump you. And I do applaud them for that because they are reaching back to their heritage and keeping that 70% of cars that they tout still on the road today.
I got one last question, and Paul, thanks for covering. I'm sure you did. So this is what happens, guys, just for the record, when you choose to live in places that have sketchy grids where your generator is often the thing that powers all of your everything. And so in Puerto Rico, we lose electricity once a day, and here we are in the middle of nowhere in Appalachia. We lose electricity quite frequently as well. But there you go. So most special, okay, I'm going to do you guys have any knowledge on the VIP program, or maybe we do homework on that and we come back? Because the VIP program effectively ended. And so what, chime in. What do you guys know what's going on? I mean, Dave
What do
shook
you,
his,
I mean,
I
it's,
don't. I don't
I
know
mean,
much about the VIP
I mean,
program.
we know it. I know it through clients. I'm sure Casey's clients have experienced this. I think those who had the foresight to know the value of it, buying the 918 Spider, benefited. I seriously doubt. I can't imagine Porsche doing that again unless there's some kind of crisis. I mean, if they released, which I think they pulled back. What was it? The electric, Halo car. Like if they released
The
that,
mission.
the Mission E, I think that would have been a reason to reactivate the VIP program because no one would buy that car. And I think Porsche realized that the VIP program was great for then, and 10 years was too long. But I bet you, Casey, some of the cars that you take care of were direct benefit of the VIP program.
so unfortunately, I never sold a 918. I came very close. And when Porsche was having issues selling 918, they actually had a dealership launch of the vehicle where select people got to go to Road Atlanta. And it was the fastest I've ever driven in the rain, where that GT1 did a backflip. I was doing 175 miles an hour with a pro in the passenger seat telling me to keep my foot in it because that kept the car closer to the ground, chasing down 911 Turbo S's like they were stopped. And I do take care of a 918 now. It definitely does not get driven like that. So I do not have, I knew that for a very long time, a lot of special vehicles were not available to dealerships. Things like, I guess the one that sticks out most prominently is probably the 911R because they really only made enough in the United States that would have been sucked up by those people and other VIP clients that were able to source one through whatever. So I can't speak to it exactly, but now that the program is over, from what I understand, it's up to the dealership. And I can't speak to a dealership that had these because I do know of a number of people that are part of the program and have benefited from it. But I don't know what they're doing with those clients and how they're handling it. So I'm not sure you're going to be able to find an answer to your question.
So I knew 3 VIPs, and none of them are choosing to deal with it anymore because their dealerships all are deciding who they, just as what you just said, who gets what. And the dealerships are doing them a favor by agreeing to sell them the cars that they're able to get before at MSRP now for 50 grand over. So the VIPs now are having to pay an overage for the cars that they were able to get. And so pretty much all of them have checked out, which is interesting. And you also said something else that was fascinating. You said the 2016 911R. How many of those things do they make? I thought they made quite a few of those, like
They made
2,000.
no, not I thought
No, it's less than 1,000.
991.
Oh,
Something
991.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that to me is you were talking about. I think Dave earlier was talking about GT3 RS from that generation. I the GT that 991 GT3 RS I think drives better than the 19 personally because it feels more like a race car. But to me, like the last modern 911 that really drives great, and I take care of an ST, but I've not driven it. It's unfortunately got delivery miles on it. But that 911R drives amazingly. It's an awesome car.
So 911R for you, Casey, or 964 RS if you had to choose, all things equal.
964 RS every day of the
That's
week, except
awesome.
on Sunday.
That's awesome.
There's
I
not
agree.
to me. There's, I mean, and like Paul was talking about 99. I mean, I can talk forever about this, but 964 RS Club Sport, not a big fan. 993 RS Club Sport, big fan.
And those are cheaper than the Tourings, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, but not 964 RS basic, don't care what color it is. To me, it doesn't really get better than that driving experience.
Dave, tell us about the one you have in your shop. You mentioned it earlier.
It's a client's car. It's a mint green imported car. It was a German car. It's got miles. This car has, I don't know, 220,000 kilometers on it, but the owner of this particular car has really done a gorgeous job of bringing this car back to showroom condition. It's gorgeous, and we're just doing a couple of maintenance items here. This guy was on that rally that I was telling you about earlier, and he's coming back up later in the year for another one. So he lives in Florida. He leaves the car here with me. And so he could obviously you can't, it's nothing good to drive in Florida, obviously. So he, people leave these cars up here and fly up and they'll do a weekend in the car. But this car it's gorgeous. I mean, it is absolutely stunner. It sits in the front lobby of my building here, and I don't think it's in the back there. No, there it is, right there.
Yep.
Yeah, there we
is,
see
right
it.
And here's a crazy
it's in
thing,
the shop.
and this is what Casey was talking
Go
about.
ahead. No,
You'll pay $100,000 for a color on an RS, which to me is
Is
ridiculous.
that true? Really? 100?
100
Man,
grand
wow.
for the. If you got black, I would say black and red are the least desirable, maybe followed closely by white, versus maritime blue is kind of the holy grail. Ruby stone's close, mint. I mean, here's the funny thing is, I think they made more maritime blue 964 RSs than any other color, and this is where exclusivity isn't it. It's just people like that color. It's the
Yeah.
I love the words you use, Casey. Communication color, which is a great term. It was what the marketing was. So, and that's where I get. We could talk about another show, but my biggest frustration is what people pay for color. It's to me such a shallow pool to be swimming in.
I think I was going to make one for my company, but perhaps Tim, maybe you can. I mean, I know that there's been a bunch of debate about color, but we should make a shirt that says, "Remember it was when it was about the car and not about the color."
I like that.
Okay, well then I'm going to make that myself, and I'll just send each of you one of those. Okay. Is
All
that
right,
okay for you
that's
guys?
perfect. Yeah.
And maybe on the back it says, "I don't give a shit about your spec."
Well, but it is a strange little, I don't know. There is definitely a bifurcation in the Porsche world where you have a group of guys that were car enthusiasts that like drive the cars that will, talk about all the things that Casey just talked about with the clutch pedal and all these different things. And there's this new generation and I saw it when I went to Moda Miami, and there was a whole bunch of Porsche guys there that did not look like Porsche guys when I'm in Southern California. They look like Lamborghini guys if I'm just sort of like casting dispersions, okay? They did. They were rocking the brand labels and the gold and the other thing. And these three guys got out of these gorgeous RSs, and I was like, okay, here's my people. Nope, not my people. But it is fascinating. It's that PTS thing. Porsche's done such a good job of bringing in the exclusivity. It's expansion of the market, but who knows what time will tell. It's kind of funny. We spec'd our Speciale, 296 Speciale last week, and Paul's still not forgiven me for choosing Rosa Corsa, but that's okay. And and the funny thing is that Rosa Corsa now is becoming one of the rarest colors on new Ferraris because everyone is getting peer pressure from their friends like Paul to get these oddball colors. So in any event, that's probably
the communication color was this bitchin' green, really cool green. I loved it. You like green, right?
Okay, all right. So we're going to just talk some numbers. Yes, my wife Julia's Alfa Romeo Giulia is Quattrofoglio is that green color. Do you realize how much that green? I'm just going to throw it out there. Do you know how much that green color costs just to get that color?
No.
Didn't you say 40 grand last week?
Boom! Dave wins. He listened to past podcasts. $38,000. Okay, so just on paint on one of those, if you wanted to do a hand stenciled, which is pretty amazing, Cavallino, shields, that's 15 grand. If you want to do stripes, that's another 20, 25 grand for paint. And then when you take, I put these pictures on the Full Throttle Talk Instagram. When we were in the Ferrari showroom, I put all the reds out. I put Rosa Corsa, and then I put all the 2-layer, 3-layer, and there's 4-layer reds. And I put them all there, and I was looking. Now, granted, my eyes are 55 years old, so who the hell knows if I'm able to pick up the different, colors as well as I used to. But they did not look that different. But the Rosa Corsa, no extra charge. The one clear over here is you have to wait a year, and it's 40 grand. I'm sorry, I'm just back where I started. So there you go.
But it's still red. The other one is still a red, and you got to wait a year for it. It's just a different red.
Yeah,
Rosa
Corsa,
would be stupid.
Yeah. Well, in any event, there you go.
I think it'd be stupid to buy a red that cost a lot go for the free color.
Agreed.
But were there any other free colors that weren't red, white, or black?
Oh yeah, there's a lot. There's 2 different shades of red. There's Rosa Scuderia, there's Rosa Corsa, there's all kinds of different, all those other normal colors you'd expect. But here's what's fascinating. The reason I was telling you this long-winded story, sorry, is that in the Porsche world, special colors made in the car is worth a hell of a lot more down the road. In the Ferrari world, the special colors sometimes will work against the value or have absolutely no value retention when you go to sell the car. That is interesting to me.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
I mean,
always pretty
definitely.
mean. I was always pretty mean when clients wanted paint to sample cars, especially when it was colors I didn't agree with. I had a guy,
Oh,
99991 GT2 RS, came in, wanted voodoo blue. And I said, I'm not painting a Porsche, a Toyota color. I said, let's take a step back and let's look back through history. So we settled on Aero Blue, which is a 70s Porsche
SC.
color, and um, and it was one of two ever produced, and it's significantly cooler than Voodoo Blue.
I agree. That's a great color. Like same thing. Like instead of getting GT3 RS orange, get Continental orange. A little different.
Well, they
Mhm.
if they made Continental Orange now, that would be super rad, but I don't think it's on the approved list. But I would definitely go for that when there's. I mean, I'm a big 934 guy, so seeing Continental Orange and Jägermeister and all those liveries from back in the day, that hits a sweet spot.
I agree. I agree.
Well, before my electricity goes out, Paul has to run the show again, which he had made it very clear when we started doing this. He wants no organizational responsibilities, which I continue to respect. Let's wrap. So on next week's show, I would like to. What would you guys like to really focus on? What would you like to really drill down on? Something. Hey, over your shoulder, Dave. Is that our blue car? It is.
Yes. I
Yes.
think that is your car. There's your
Yeah.
car right
There.
there.
Yeah, yeah. So you are working on
Yes.
it. Thank you.
Yes. It's
I'm
running.
just
It's
kidding.
running great.
I know. That's embarrassing. Ugh. I don't. Yeah. We
I
don't
mean,
use. Go
the
ahead.
main things that I love to talk about, maybe no one else does, is going back to what Casey talked about is like, what do we do with these cars? I want to drive. Like,
Let's make that
why?
the subject. Yep. Let's
Like,
talk about that.
Like
But
it.
I want.
Like
there's
it.
I
more to life than cars and coffee, you know?
Well, but this is a good wrapping up, okay? Because Casey's focus is taking care of collections. He basically will fly to your location. He'll take care of your cars. He'll do concierge from soup to nuts. Literally, he'll make things mechanically run. He'll do everything you can possibly want. You just show up, you drive your car. It's like, the way that Porsche and Ferrari does with gentlemen's racing. Am I encapsulating this fairly accurately? You'll even help people sell cars and locate cars, correct?
Yes. I mean, the mechanical aspect of it, that does require support. I cut myself off at certain levels, but I do have the types of support. Or if I don't have it, I would certainly look for it in the specific area to make sure that it does work to the client's advantage.
So, and then, obviously Dave is running what's becoming one of the nation's most respected shops, certainly on the East Coast, probably has already arrived, without overly specializing as, in 1950s Porsches or whatever. And then Paul's famous.
I'm
Everyone
just a
knows Paul.
pimp. I'm just pimping
Paul is a
80.
used car dealer. All
I'm a
right.
used car salesman.
Salesman.
What's it
Sorry.
going to take to get you into the Aero Blue SC?
So I do like your idea, Paul. So next week, let's actually talk about what it's really like to keep one of these cars, to maintain it, to really live with it on a daily basis. Because I'm still learning after all my years in these things. And you know what I could really learn, and Dave, you could help me out with this, how I can make it so that the cars stay healthy. You know what I'm going to do is just have Casey take care of my shit for me, so I don't have to do it anymore. That's going to be my solution. I'm not going to try to learn the fuel stabilizer and all the rest of it. Casey's going to just square me away. But yes, so let's talk about that on the next show. Any other topics you could like to drill down on? Any other things you want to have us focus on? We're trying to diversify our automotive talent here. Go ahead.
And maybe we can come back and do this or that. I really like it. I've got great feedback from people because the way I treat this or that is, and I'm sorry, Tim, and I did this, I leaned into this, and Greg did too, which was sort of these ridiculous scenarios. Do you want dinner or do you want
If
a
you want
coffee table?
you want to do a bonus session? Let's do a bonus this or that, because you obviously have prepared. And I
Well, and we could do it another time, but I have a good one. But like, I think about this or that, like in my real life. Like, I mean, how many times do you go like, okay, if I needed a daily driver to do this, what would I seriously be looking at? And like, literally, I went down a long rabbit hole of like, right now I have a 2003 Jaguar S Type R. I know that's it's a great car and it's cheap
Cool
and no one
car.
cares.
Yeah.
Every time I have to fix that car, it's like Sophie's choice. Do I kill it or do I put more money into a hole? Anyway, but I was got in this rabbit hole. Like if that died, and I need a daily driver, which by the way, I live 2 miles from my shop. I don't really need a daily driver, but you got to have something with 4 doors and at least 4 doors. What would I buy? I would say let's do, what if we did a this or that for next week on based on each person, what they like for a daily driver, what their daily driver would be. If they had a this or that, a daily driver.
Well, you know what? Let's throw it out to the listeners too. You guys participate as well. Let us know what your this or that. Was there a dollar amount? Should we put it?
No, well, the goal is to the cars need to be the same price. And it's all depends on different price point. And if your price point is 20 grand, somewhere in the 20s, if you are comfortable spending 100 grand on a daily driver, great. But like they all need to be roughly the same amount of money.
Okay, and let's also do our top 3 cars that if we'd had the cash, we would have bought off Bring a Trailer. We can change that. And so what Bring a Trailer cars we wish we would have hit buy now on,
like between now and next week, whatever closes on Bring a Trailer in the next 7 days, that if someone just said, here's a car, there's no residual value, you're not paying for it, you're not maintaining it, but this is your car for, let's say, the next 2 years.
Right. Exactly. Like you guys aren't on Bring a Trailer as often as I am. I'm on constantly. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's, but it's an obsession. So Casey, any suggestions for you? Anything you think we should drill down on?
I think that's a great start. And I appreciate you guys involving me. This was a lot of fun today. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. I want to hear more about that Safari 992.2 or 0.1 behind you. I want to really, to me, I don't get those cars. I want someone to explain to me why I'm stupid for not understanding them, because in the scheme of modern GT cars, they do seem a little bit priced right.
You mean the Dakar?
It's Dakar. Sorry. Yeah.
So
and by the way, we're getting today an SC Safari car, which I own a car that people call a Safari car. It's not. I get it. I know what they're for. We can definitely talk about Safari life.
Who built it? Who built that one, Paul?
It was built in Maryland in 1992, backdated.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Shade tree mechanic. Like every which way you could do something wrong, this guy did, but for whatever reason, it works.
I sold 4 Dakars, I think, and one of them has a tremendous story, and I will tell that story on the next podcast.
Please do. So we have basically, what do you do with these cars? Rally cars, why we rally, how we prepare for it. And that could lead right into why are people building Safari cars? Why the heck they go for 2x what they normally would go for. And I would love to hear, I know a few Dakar friends who actually use their car, and that's the outlier, because most of them just look and park like where they are in your shop, Casey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the question is why would you buy a Dakar over the Lamborghini equivalent? Because that Lamborghini equivalent's got that V10. So
I would probably buy the Lamborghini.
Yeah, me too. But we'll end it there. Cliffhanger.
All right.
All right. So listeners, please give us some feedback. Please give us some suggestions, show ideas, ask questions, praise, criticism, whatever you got. We want to really evolve. Our goal is to make this the #1, enthusiast, obviously Porsche enthusiast. Really, I think maybe if I can bend these guys in the different direction, more, multifaceted enthusiast podcast. So please give us some ideas. What do you guys want us to focus on? We had a great question about perfect first car, for a first time driver. Maybe you're thinking about, well, I'm thinking about buying a new Corvette. They're, or newer Corvette. They're now down to 50 or 60 grand. What would be a Porsche equivalent? Whatever you guys have, give us some ideas, and definitely subscribe over on Instagram. And Paul has got the best, most, I think, shockingly well done. That's meant as a compliment. Videos that he puts on Instagram. You guys got to check those out as well. So in the meantime, thank you for joining us for this week's Full Throttle Talk. Thanks, guys.